All right. Well, hey, everybody. Happy Friday. This is the final live stream of 2025. So I'm Christopher Lind, and this is my Future Focused Live. This is a little bit of a different flavor, just so you know. So normally I have kind of three big headline articles that have happened over the past week, and then I answer three questions each for that. This week's a little bit different because I don't have a podcast next week, and then I'm off for a couple weeks. And I did commit at the beginning of 2026. I did a predictions article and podcast. You can go back and check that out either on Substack or on my podcast, which is any Audible listening platform you listen to. But anyway, I went through 10 different predictions that I thought we'd see play out in 2025. And what better way to spend my last live stream of 2025 than going back through them and taking a look at what I thought at the beginning of January and talk about how they've played out based on some of the data and research I've seen and just my own personal consulting experience over the last year. So that's what I'm going to be talking through. I'm not going to get into what my predictions are for 2026. I'm in the process of mapping out what that episode's going to look like, and that will drop first thing in 2026. So if you're curious what I think about what's to come, and it's a spicy one. It's definitely one. I've got some very strong feelings about things that we're going to need to do in 2026, or at least that I think we should. So keep an eye out for that. But with that, if you want, you can go back, and in the description, I actually linked the original article, but I'm just going to run through what those are and just kind of comment on what I saw over this year and where I think we are, how we landed. So the first one was, if you look at it, the first prediction I had at the beginning of 2025 was I predicted we were going to see a pretty exponential rise in emotional AI. And when I said emotional AI, what I meant was chatbots specifically built and designed for the purpose of performing some sort of human interaction. So, an empathetic chatbot, maybe in healthcare, customer service, things like that, where you might say, hey, rather than a person doing this, let's have AI do this, or maybe let's, we'll augment it. Maybe we'll still have a person there, but maybe we'll do this. And it really was this concern about some of the future push of trying to replace people with AI. Now, here's where I think I nailed it, and where some things I did not see. The first one is, and by the way, I am live, so if you ask questions or you want clarity on any of these, just ask and I'll respond back. I don't feed the trolls though, so if you if you just say things that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about, I'm not going to acknowledge it. But those of you who have been to my streams before know I love doing these things. It's super fun to interact with folks. So I'm streaming on different platforms, whether on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Substack, doesn't matter to me. I can see them all. Okay, so but this first one was this idea that emotional AI was really going to take off. And where I would say my prediction was accurate was, yes, we've seen a surge in this. If you look at some of where investor dollars, VC dollars went, if you look at the ecosystem of AI tools, that 2025 was definitely the year that just flooded. Everybody was getting pounded with these. A lot of them were making promises like this. I don't know how many AI coaches there are, how many AI therapist apps there are, how many big companies tried to replace customer service or heavily replace customer service with AI chatbots to try and make things work. I said in my prediction article, the risks are significant. And one of the things that's crazy is that it did not take long for the data to come in that emotional AI came with a lot of risks. If you look at a lot of the research and a lot of the really tragic incidents that happened in 2025, AI proved to not be a very great human companion. We've seen some really, it's driven people crazy. It's driven them to self-terminate. It's driven them to do some really, really wild things. And I would say emotional attachment to AI, let's just say it's got a much greater stranglehold on people than I really even anticipated would happen in 2025. I did not think the emotional attachment would be quite so great. I figured the apps would come, and all this other stuff. So in some ways, I don't even want to say it's a blessing and a curse, because there's really no good side to some of the stuff that came from it. But what we did see is it went really fast, which has ups and downs. On the downside, a lot of people got hurt really quick in 2025. But I think that also forced a lot of companies to recognize and have to deal with that, which actually pulled back things. Like, we learned our lesson the hard way. We drove this train off the bridge in 2025 and pretty quickly went, oh, there's a lot more here. Now, I will say with this prediction, the fulfillment of this one, definitely not it definitely wasn't one that I think we're going to see go away right away. I don't think we're going to see these emotional AI apps disappear, but I think people are waking up to the fact that, yeah, this isn't really a good thing. Like, your best friend or your therapist being a chatbot is really bad. Some of the most vulnerable populations right now, though, who are still getting sucked into this, where I saw massive growth in 2025 that has caused a lot of harm that I'm hoping will pull back, is in kids. So kids' emotional AI attachment is huge. Vulnerable people, so people going through really hard times, people who are depressed, elderly folks are extremely vulnerable and have been targeted by a lot of these emotional AI apps. So we've seen that massive growth. We've also seen a lot of harm come out of it, which has resulted in, I would say, a bit of a pullback over the year, but there's still people who are determined to make it work. There's still a market for it, because there's a lot of vulnerable people who are still not aware, how risky it can be to interact with emotional AI types. Now, the other thing is there's been some massive, not only data showing how risky this is, but there have also been some big companies who have completely hit the brakes on some of this stuff. Notably, McDonald's and Taco Bell completely pulled the plug on AI drive-through. Their AI drive-through initiatives. And this is like big. They had millions and millions of orders being taken by AI chatbots as part of their, AI transformation. And it went so poorly that they just had to pull the whole thing. Now, what's interesting about it, watching this play out over 2025, is that, and I talk about this a lot, I feel like some of these things, it wasn't that they couldn't have worked or they didn't work at all. It's that the consequences, they didn't account for the consequences. So there were just some really big mistakes made. And those mistakes were so big, they countered all the good that came from it. So as an example, if you look at Taco Bell's AI customer service, drive-through ordering, they did 2 million successful orders. That's a lot. Unfortunately, the bad stuff that happened, whether it was the guy or somebody who ordered 18,000 waters and somebody else ordered, like these ridiculous orders where they trolled the AI drive-through agent. They were so notable and so big, and they went viral all over social media. It didn't matter that they had a lot of success with it, because what has been clear from 2025 is people's attitudes towards AI is growing increasingly hostile. Definitely growing increasingly hostile. So it will be interesting to see what happens in 2026, but definitely in 2025, we did see an exponential growth in emotional type AIs and a lot of the consequences that went with those. So what's to come? Well, I said this isn't going to be a what do I think for 2026 just yet, but I kind of hinted at the fact that, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting one, to say the least. Okay, so prediction number two that when I wrote this up back in January of 2025 was that deepfakes will blur reality. And as I look back at my prediction over this, back in January, there were predictions that 90% of content will be AI generated. So I cited that. There was kind of a number that was floating all over. I don't know that we got quite that far. And I know depending on which news sources you look at or, where you go on the internet, you'll hear things like there's not a single human being left on the internet type of a thing. I can say from these live streams, I interact with enough people and just through my communities online, there's still plenty of people on the internet. So, are we at the point where AI content has just completely saturated things? I would say no, but enough so that going back to this rising anger and frustration towards AI, society's kind of sick of it. I mean, Merriam-Webster's word of the year this year was slop, which specifically was addressing this whole AI slop. I mean, good grief. We got political leaders using AI to make really offensive AI generated content and spewing it all over the internet. So, but see, I don't know if I'd call that deep fake. I mean, in a way it was, but the thing is I don't know that the tech, what really kind of caught me off guard this year was how quickly AI video generation advanced. If you look back at AI video generation in 2025 in January, it wasn't terribly great. It was extremely obvious when you were making AI generated video. So when I made this prediction, I said it's probably going to be more image related. I didn't really anticipate video would come as far as it did. And I would say that, yeah, we've seen a massive surge in deepfakes, which to my prediction about some of the fallout of that is people are extremely skeptical of what they see on the internet, not skeptical enough, in my opinion, especially given how advanced AI video generation has come. Because now video generated, granted, if you're paying attention, and I just talked about it, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, McDonald's just got roasted for doing an AI video commercial where they spliced together a whole bunch of AI videos. And I'm not going to repeat everything that was, but like people can pick up on it. So I will say people are much more attuned to catching the little details. And as a warning to people, when people catch it, it blows up. So if you're a big company and you're thinking, hey, maybe we can save a few bucks by using a company that, generates AI media, or, they can do our ad campaign with AI. It's not that AI doesn't have a place, but if they overdo it and don't have a lot of QC behind it, the world will be completely, they will come back with a fury of stuff. So, did it blur reality? I would say yes. Not quite the way I anticipated. I thought there would be a lot more people who genuinely would be deceived by a lot of the deepfake content. I guess is an encouraging thing. Humanity did wise up fairly well. There's still a lot of crap that gets around, but that's always been the case. I mean, fake news and just fake reality has been a thing long before AI generated stuff. So interesting. I don't know where we'll go in 2026 with this one. People seem to be really growing in their awareness, or at least attention. They're looking for little things. An AI video clip, people are picking up on even just these small details, and then freaking out about it, even if it actually doesn't detract from it. Going back to this McDonald's commercial, I mean, it wasn't a great commercial, but it also wasn't terrible. But people were so upset about the fact it was AI generated that I would just really caution anybody who's thinking of using it for either a deep fake for, deceiving people. Cause I see this all the time on social media. People, this is another one that just kind of blew up. You'll see the usual social media posts where, somebody has a picture and then some emotional or, rage baity post, and then the picture isn't even real. Now, I think the one thing that really caught people off guard was, how quickly the video content came. the trend right now is like fake police body cam footage type of a thing. That again just sends everybody off the edge and they're outraged by it. And then you're like, that never actually even happened. Like, that's not even a real video. And we've seen, I actually was involved with some stuff where some lawyers were getting in trouble for submitting AI evidence. So there you go. So will it, continue? I guess we'll see. The one serious question that came through in the comments that I'll at least just briefly respond: will we be going to 2027? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get asked this every once in a while. They're like, do you think we'll make it to past 2027? I don't anticipate anything's going to be that dramatic. I think some of the doomsday stuff flying around that we're never going to make it to 2027 or beyond 2030, I just don't think it's helpful. It'll be dramatically different in a few years. And based on some of the things happening right now, it might be a very different world in 2027 than it is in 2025 or 2026, but we'll see. Okay, so prediction number 3 I had in January, and that we'll check back in on, was the mental health crisis will escalate. This one probably was worse than I thought. And where I addressed it specifically was, I said we're going to see burnout increase, but then also a lot of this kind of mental health stuff blow up, which, going back to my prediction number 1, that we've had this in spades in 2025. I don't know that I talked to anybody. AI came in promising it was going to do all the busy work for us so that we could focus on the utopian, deeper, higher order stuff that we love doing in our creative space. And actually, in many cases, AI has not been doing that. In fact, I talked to software developers who spend more time proofing AI generated slop code and, marketing professionals who are proofing AI generated marketing slop and then trying to clean it up. So people are definitely extremely burned out as a result of AI because, and I don't think this is inherently AI's fault. I made a post about it this week on LinkedIn. AI is not doing anything to anyone. AI is not doing it. AI is always doing what someone instructed it to do. So somewhere along the line, a person made a decision about what they were going to have AI do, and people are wrestling through that. So, some of this burnout that we have, yeah, a lot of companies have made decisions to just increase expectations, reduce headcount, and it's leading to people just burning themselves up with generative AI products, creating more work slop, which just creates more work that people have to clean up. So yeah, the burnout, I haven't seen Gallup's latest numbers. It was at 75% of tech workers were burned out in January. I'd wager a bet, though, that as we come into the end of the year, just based on the conversations I've had and watching how things played out this year, I would bet burnout is even higher, and it's expanded beyond just tech workers. I see AI contributing to burnout in a whole bunch of different places. And that's just because as AI continues to be adopted more widespread, some of the bad practices around AI has just expanded. Now, the other half of this one that is unfortunate and tragic is the fact that there are countless examples of really, really tragic outcomes that are being directly tied to AI use. I mean, character AI has been completely banned from a lot of places. Kids are not allowed on it, although kids just are good at getting around it. Social media has been completely banned for kids under 16 in Australia. I know they're still working through all that. But yeah, it's because we're seeing the real consequences of what happens when people become over emotionally dependent on AI and use it for things that really it shouldn't. So the data is coming in clear, and the lawsuits are also starting to pile up, which that's going to be really interesting to see. I said I'm not going to talk too much about what I think we're going to see in 2026, but I will just touch on the fact that there are a ton of legal suits building against tech companies for wrongful death, for mental illness, for, unintended consequences, all this stuff. And where the law plays out and what the legal rulings are on some of these things, that's where we're not there yet. We haven't necessarily seen some of this come down in terms of from a legal standpoint, because it all happened in 2025. All these tragedies related to mental health happened. People are still largely kind of hiding a lot of their emotional AI dependency because they're embarrassed or it's taboo. Nobody wants to say I'm although even that's been interesting. It's becoming more commonplace for people to, announce that they're falling in love with their chatbot type of a thing. But legally, we haven't really gotten to the point where there's a consistent legal ruling. I have a lot of friends who are kind of in the AI legal space right now. And we aren't there because the lawsuits are just getting in process and they haven't played out yet. So we don't have a legal precedent on how this stuff goes, which will be interesting as we kind of move forward to see where that shakes out. Because I think that's going to have a big, heavy influence on whether we continue to see this being pushed and driven or whether it starts to pull back. Now, with the administration we have now in the US and just some of the things going on in the world right now, there is a heavy push to not regulate or have any sort of legal accountability for the tech companies and what they do with this. So, again, what we'll see coming forward is TBD. But some of this stuff, there's just no denying. The one thing that's clear is there's no denying AI is directly tied to this, which the outcome of what happened is not good in any way, shape, or form. What is helpful from that, though, is by it all happening so fast, it is very easy to directly tie AI use to the consequences. We didn't see the same thing in social media. I think that's been one of the challenges with some of this social media accountability is it happens slower over time. And so that makes it harder to prove from a legal standpoint, because you can't, you can say we believe this is the result of social media, but so much time has passed. You're like, how can you really prove social media did it? With it, generative AI, when there's literally a conversation with a person immediately preceding them taking their own life, where the chatbot is talking them and amping them up and giving them instructions on what to do and basically telling them, this is like the best thing. This is the best outcome for you. That's a lot easier to prove from a legal standpoint, because you can say, no, here's the evidence. Social media was a little bit more, it was a little more not cryptic in terms of how it pulled it off, because you couldn't necessarily say, there were cases where you had cyberbullying where it was clear, cyberbullying tied to it and things like that. But a lot of this stuff of like people's identity being tied to their social media appearance, all this, it was a lot harder to prove. The one benefit of Gen AI is there's receipts, which from a legal standpoint makes it a whole lot easier to present a case and convict an AI company or, the AI companies for their responsibility and stuff, because you literally can read the conversations where it did the thing and they can try and go, well, we didn't tell it to do it, but it's like, it doesn't matter. You trained AI and did not put the governing boundaries in place to stop it from doing these things. You basically let it go ungoverned on the world, and then this happened, and you can't do that and then go, not my fault. But we just haven't seen enough, in my opinion. We're starting to see some of them. We just haven't seen enough in 2025. Now, the thing that was interesting about this prediction was I did not expect it to move as quick as it did. So some of the real consequences we saw in 2025, some of the real mental health problems that are tied to artificial intelligence, I didn't think they'd blow up quite the way they did in 2025, which I guess what we could see with that is that could mean maybe we turn sooner. I don't know. To be determined. Okay, so the next prediction I had was job displacement will expand into new fields. So in 2020, at the beginning of 2025, there was a lot of emphasis on the impact AI was having in the tech industry. We saw lots of jobs out of big tech being eliminated. I mean, Meta has just completely wiped out massive portions of their company. We're seeing this all over the place. I will say this one is worse than I thought would happen in 2025. I knew job displacement was going to be bad. I knew 2025 was going to be a rough year economically, and there was going to be a lot of things that we were going to see directly tied to AI. I think the perfect storm of other factors, whether it's geopolitical unrest, whether it's economic uncertainty related to certain things, then you stack AI on top of it. The job market has been the worst I've seen it in my entire career. And here's where it's deceptive, though, in 2025. And I think this is an unfortunate part I've talked about a lot. It's almost become a pop culture trend for companies to blame all their downsizing on AI. It's just, I see it. I'm in meetings with companies as they're working through some of this stuff. And it's kind of the scapegoat right now. I wrote an article probably a couple months ago about it, where I said, you got to stop doing this. This is like a leadership cheap shot, where you, instead of taking responsibility for your decisions, if you're a CEO or CFO or CHRO and you're, supporting wiping out 15% of your employee base, you don't get to do that and then just go casually do a PR call and say, yeah, well, with the future of AI, we just didn't need as many people. Because that's not actually even the case. I'm in these meetings and it's not just this dead swap. And one thing that's been interesting in 2025 related to this is, yes, we have seen massive economic disruption and a lot of job displacement as a result of AI. We're already starting to see the companies that made that move reverse it. They just aren't being loud about it. This is one of the really interesting things that I see in a fair amount of my work, is how quietly companies are trying to rehire the people they got rid of recklessly because they thought, well, we have Gen AI, we'll just run on 80% of our people and make them make up the 20% with chatbots. And they're like, oh, this went really, really bad. But rather than public, and this is the part that pisses me off a bit in terms of like just leadership accountability, instead of owning it, instead of going, you know what, we over-indexed on AI. We really thought we were going to get a lot more lift out of AI. We believed the promises out of big tech that we were going to see a 20 to 40% lift in productivity. And we proactively got rid of people. Instead of owning that and saying we did that and it didn't go as we thought, and now we are in the process of reversing and kind of reconciling that. They just kind of scuttle into the shadows as though it never happened, and quietly send notes to all the people they laid off, offering them bonuses to return, hoping to never have to publicly take an account for the mistakes they made, which not only is that a cowardly move, and I have no problem saying it, and I say it regularly on LinkedIn, that like, if you're doing this as a leader, you're not a leader, you're a coward. But what's unfortunate about the lack of public accountability for it is there are still lots of companies that I interact with that are still buying the idea. Companies are successfully laying off large portions of their workforce and successfully replacing them with AI. The number of people that still are believing that it's working is insane. It's absolutely insane how many people in senior leadership roles are still like, yeah, I heard these companies got rid of 20% of their workforce and things are going fine. I'm like, nuh-uh, like go talk to their CFO, go talk to their CHRO. You'll find they're all scrambling, trying to clean up the mess. They're all scrambling, trying to figure out how to get all the intellectual capital they dumped out, thinking they had chatbots that were smarter than 1,000 PhDs that are incompetent. I mean, the data is in that AI is not even remotely close to as capable as even an average, below average human being. It's not even close in terms of what it can do. And I'm not talking about, on benchmarks, it can do this stuff. I'm saying in practical, tangible terms, the most notable study I saw in 2025 was one where they literally went side by side, head to head, AI agent versus human, and said, let's give it both of them a prompt instruction on here's what I need. And then let's see how humans and how AI perform. And it was pathetic. It was honestly pathetic. Anybody who saw that, because they had the receipts, they showed what AI generated and did. And it was a pretty jarring awakening of like, yeah, if you think you can get rid of any percentage of your workforce and just swap in an agent, you're in trouble. But again, unfortunately, because there's not public accountability and senior leaders willing to say, yeah, we messed up. We messed up. We made a mistake. We're sorry. We're in the process of trying to clean this up. Unfortunately, in 2025, and we're still there. What we'll see in 2026, I've got my thoughts, but more on that in January. There are still lots of companies that believe it is a success because they're reading the headlines, and big tech is determined to convince the world that you had better be all in on everything with AI. And AI is great. I'm a big advocate of AI, thoughtfully and with discernment. But there is tons of money being poured into fueling this idea that if you're not doing everything with AI and you aren't, cutting back and doing all this stuff with AI, you're missing out. And I'll just tell you right now, I do probably, so just objectively, if I look back at some of the work I've done, and as I'm coming into the end of the year, I would say a lot of my work is actually shifting towards cleaning up AI messes rather than proactively going, hey, we're trying to think through what this is. So even I'm seeing in my consulting work, I'm getting called in to go, all right, so we messed up. We can't, publicly acknowledge this, but we got to clean it up because it's bad. So anyway, it's definitely displacing jobs. But again, I would actually push back on this whole thing. One thing I did not see in 2025 coming was just how much of a pop trend it was going to become to just, hey, you just use AI as a scapegoat. It doesn't surprise me. I just didn't think we'd get here to this point, because that really is what AI is for a lot of people. It's a scapegoat. It's a veil between accountability. And that's not just in the job market. That's in all sorts of things. People are doing stupid stuff with AI, and then when they get caught, they go, I didn't do it. AI did it. It's like, no, you did it. You did it. You told AI to do it, and then you didn't pay attention to what AI did. And unfortunately, what a lot of people don't realize is when accountability comes a calling, which it does, you're carrying a lot more of it. And I see this in the senior leadership quite a bit, where they're trusting AI to help them make decisions and all this stuff rather than their teams. And then when it blows up, they're carrying all the weight of that accountability. And that's one of the things that I warn people about all the time is just AI amplifies everything it touches. So if there's risk associated with something that you're doing and you're trusting AI to do it, if you're not doing it wisely, the accountability that will come is going to be that much more intense. And I guess the McDonald's example is a perfect example of it. We just did it with AI. Yeah. And they've been I guarantee they spent 10x more money trying to clean up the mess than anything they think they might have saved with it. So job displacement, it's rough. And if you're somebody who's out of work or struggling to find work or whatever, you have my sincerest sympathy, because I know a lot of really brilliant, talented people who just want to work hard and they can't for the life of them find work because companies are either just banking too much on AI or they just aren't really sure, what or they're banking on AI to, gosh, I hate this. They're even banking on AI to find people. And so an AI does a terrible job. Okay. So the next prediction I had was employability. Okay. Whether you're employable or not will be redefined. And when I wrote this, what I meant by this prediction was that companies were very much going to shift to measuring people's effectiveness based on how quickly they could adapt and stay relevant than than what they traditionally did. Like, hey, you're a this job title, and so that's how we're measuring you, type of a thing. I will say this one did not move like I had hoped it would. I talked about in January that I really thought we were going to see a lot of redefining of roles, retooling of jobs and skills. We were going to see some of this work really happen. I really thought the AI push was going to force companies to not keep skipping over the things that they have been skipping over for a long time, which is really understand what does it take for somebody to do a job well from a skills standpoint, and then retool what skills look like in all this. We haven't made a whole lot of progress here, to be honest with you, that I've seen. I won't say progress hasn't happened at all, but it definitely did not happen the way I thought. We largely, people are either one, they're just too busy, distracted with all the things going on, and so they just haven't taken the time to do this, or they're kicking the can down the road. They're just kind of like, I don't really want to, maybe we can not have to deal with this just yet. Maybe we can keep doing what we're doing. And I think some of this is where I think I've seen this tied to it. Because when I talk to people, this is a part that's always interesting, because in the work I do, I'll hear a lot of headlines, or I'll hear people make, broadband statements about things, but they don't always know what's actually going on that people are wrestling with behind this. What I will say is, this year has been just a wild year in general. And so a lot of it really has been, people are so overwhelmed with what's on their plate. So most people right now that I encounter are just trying to get their job done because expectations are higher than they've ever been. They're expected to do it with less people, less resources. And the assumption is you have a chat bot, so you're fine. And it's like, that's not helping. It's like if you've ever been in a leadership position and you're understaffed, but your boss is like, here, you can buy a new tech tool. And you're like, that doesn't help. Like, that's not helping me get things done. So I do run into a lot of people are just burned up. They don't have enough capacity to actually focus on some of this stuff. And then, and this is a huge mistake that I see happening, is people still largely are buying the idea that AI strategy is its own thing. So when I think about employability, I continue to see a lot of leaders looking at, they're looking at how do we get AI talent in our organization? How do we get specific job titles for people who do AI things in our function, instead of saying, no, actually everybody in our function needs to be effective at using AI with what they already do. And I think this is largely a miss that we missed in 25, was the opportunity to say, instead of trying to tear down your organization and rebuild it as though AI is its own distinct thing, you should just look across your current organization and say, how do we upgrade everybody to be, optimizing themselves and our team with AI, which means not just seeing AI use as effective AI use, but I don't even see that right now. I just see a lot of like, let's tear it apart. Let's hire in some AI people, and then let's just leave everybody else to kind of do their own thing. And so the employability being redefined that I thought we would see more of in 2025 has not, it just hasn't happened the same. I will say one thing that has been really unfortunate and has compounded the challenge many people have had in finding jobs is there is this underlying expectation now. And if you look at job descriptions, and if you're somebody who's looking for a job or, is interviewing or things like that, I am shocked when I talk to people by the number of people who get into interviews and even in job descriptions when they're applying. It's like there's an expectation of AI use, like that you have to know how to speak to AI. But when these people are interviewing or when they actually get into it, there's really no clear understanding of, well, what do you want them to do with it? It's like, well, we don't know. We just know they're supposed to use AI. And I think this is really hard for people because they aren't really sure what that looks like. Hiring managers know they're supposed to be hiring people who do things with AI, but they don't even know what to ask. or what good looks like. And so it's employability right now is a bit of a dumpster fire, would be the best way I would describe the employee market right now. And unfortunately, what compounds this is it's very much in employers' favor. It's an employer's market. And so it's putting employees in a really difficult spot. Now, I am starting to see cracks in the foundation. I'm starting to see cracks in that as companies are starting to really, really struggle. So what will happen in 2026? I'll say more on that in January, but how long we're just going to have this employer market. Employers can say whatever they want. They can demand whatever they want. It can be as ridiculous as they want. They can just have unfilled roles for months and months and months and just drag people through the interview process forever, only to go, you know what, never mind. We decided we're not going to hire for that. I don't know how long that's going to last. It's really bad right now, though. It is really, really bad right now. So like I said, if you're somebody who's had a really rough year looking for a job, even if you are employed and you're not happy and you're looking for something, my sincerest apologies. Not that I'm behind it, but I feel so bad for people who have been trying to deal with employment this year. And I will say, being self-employed this year, it's not like it's magically been any easier, but I have a little more autonomy over it. I talk to a lot of people who just feel completely helpless in 2025. And that's just been a growing, expanding number. So has employability been redefined? It definitely has not. I would say we're in free fall right now. It's in dumpster fire mode. We've got a lot of work to do if we're going to do it right now. We got a lot of work, and we seem determined to burn it all to the ground before we go there. And we don't have to do that, which I think is really unfortunate, because there's a lot of people getting hurt, right now. And I hate that. And it doesn't have to be this way. So, the prediction I had for 2025 is companies will need to take responsibility for reskilling and upskilling their people and embrace this kind of continuous learning and investment. I did not see this in 2026 or in 2025. I did not see companies leaning into that. If anything, it's been a bit of the opposite. So that's where that one was. It didn't go according to plan on that one. So the next prediction I had was the remote versus in-office debate will intensify. This one did not play out the way I thought. At the end of 2024, coming into 2025, it was getting really heated with remote versus in-office. It felt like every other week there was some big company was ordering some mandate about, return to office type of a thing. And then, some other company would come out and shots fired across the bow and say, we're 100% remote. And I actually really thought in 2025, this was going to heat up and we were going to see a lot more fighting and kind of almost a, differentiating between, okay, you're in this camp, you're in that camp. This one, here's the thing. It didn't die down, but it did go into the shadows, is what I saw in 2025, which was really an interesting thing. And I think it's largely tied to the fact that the whole remote in-office debate was extremely divisive, and it was, companies were getting beat up left and right for their return to office policies. And they were very public. And so people were taking a lot of PR hits for their decisions around RTO and all this stuff. And AI kind of came in as a new distraction. And that's what I mean by this debate went into the shadows. I just talked to somebody this week that works for a very notable progressive company that is losing their job because they won't up and relocate, even though they've been remote their entire time at that company, which has been years and years and years. And they just suddenly made an RTO policy that it's like, you got to move and be in the office or we're letting you go. And I'm like, I kind of thought this thing died, but it did not. The debate is still happening, or not debate. The debate did not intensify, in that it's gone in the shadows. You really almost never even hear things about companies and their position on remote work or in-office work. But companies have quietly dug into their trenches. And more companies, because again, this whole kind of the employers have a lot of the power right now, they're actually doubling down on some of this return to office nonsense. And so people are still losing jobs over random people who've never been in the office not being in the office. I see your comment. It's because it's inconvenient for the company. Actually, it's not. It's not inconvenient to have people who have been remote stay remote. It's not, inconvenient to hire people whose jobs don't actually have a proximity requirement just because leaders are uncomfortable and don't know how to manage people. And so there are instances where, yes, it has caused inconvenient things, but the proximity factor actually hasn't been the issue in any of the things I've worked with. It's always been a leadership incompetency, or honestly, most of the time it's just ego. I will just say that most of the time, whenever I see or have been involved with companies who are doing RTO stuff, it's ego. It's ego and power. It's leaders wanting control over their people, and they don't like that they don't have control over them, which is why they want them where they can see them, they can feel better about them, they can make sure they enforce whatever it is. And that's really all it is. And now, granted, some of this is fueled by the financial markets and the fact that a lot of companies got big incentives to renew their real estate license or real estate leases on the condition that they had to get people in the office. That's the kind of like unspoken thing most people aren't talking about. Is a lot of stuff is just driven by money. Big companies got big discounts because the people who own the commercial real estate were desperate after the pandemic. And so they're like, look, if you just sign to stay with us for this long, we'll give you this big of a discount. And so companies are like, well, now we signed this, we gotta fill seats. But it's been really interesting with this remote in office thing. I can't tell you how many companies I've either been involved with, doing some advisory work, or just talk to people who've been the employers at these companies who've had to go through this RTO. They're demanded to come back in the office, and then the company has nowhere to put them. It's like they show up and they're like, where am I supposed to sit? And, oh, we don't have any office space. I can't tell you the number of people. I'll just say this. I have more than fingers people I've talked to this year who have had to work either in like the lobby of the company, or just have said, I'm just going to work out in my car because it's absolute chaos in the office. So it's actually almost been dystopian, like sad, some of this stuff. So, but like I said, you won't see the headlines as much anymore. At the end of 2024, I was like, oh boy, we are gonna see a massive public, kind of reckoning between in office and remote. We didn't really see that in 2025. It got really quiet. Everybody started talking about AI. AI became the new scapegoat. RTO was the scapegoat. That was the really convenient way to lay people off. And that's why it was such a big thing, I think, in 2024, was companies were trying to downsize. And it was just really easy to be like, well, rather than take responsibility, let's just say we want people in the office because it's good for innovation and collaboration and other leadership platitudes that don't mean anything. And then when we tell people you have to move or we're getting rid of you, they'll opt out and we don't have to be the bad guy. At least that was a lot of the reasoning or logic behind it. And then I think AI came along and it offered an even more convenient excuse. Then you didn't even have to be the bad guy in many cases. You could just go, yeah, AI, that's why we got rid of 20% of people. And in general, people just kind of went, oh yeah, yep, that is true, because it was the new pop trend. And so I think that's largely what we saw with remote and in office. It was no longer the convenient excuse for layoffs. So it just kind of faded. But quietly, more and more companies were still kind of forcing this. But even the enforcement of RTO kind of died off a bit as they realized, well, we don't have anywhere to put them anyway. So even if they showed up, what are we going to do with them? We can't handle it. Okay. Next prediction I had was cybersecurity will grow more complex and personal. And when I wrote this in the beginning of 2025, I wrote this about the fact that like cybersecurity was, I really thought, I thought we were going to start to see in 2025 the rise of like more physical tokens, face to face verification, things like that, as companies started to struggle more with deep fakes and things like that. Now, if you talk to some of the really advanced cybersecurity professionals, they are, and they will say, my CISO friends, chief information security officer friends, they'll tell you they're more stressed out than ever as it relates to cybersecurity, but interestingly, for different reasons. It's not some of the big advanced stuff that I thought at the beginning of 2025. I really thought that with the models advancing the way they did, we were going to see much more, AI driven hacking, actual deep fake fraud. I thought we'd see more people, using these deep fakes to show up in meetings because there were some major things happening. What's interesting is people are, and it's weird to even say this, but it's almost like the scammers, they actually are, I don't want to say they're using AI the right way, because what they're doing is like so corrupt, and I don't support it. But it's interesting to watch how in many cases they have a better grasp on how to get the most out of AI than anybody. They're amplifying their scams with AI. They're not coming up with new AI scams. They're just making their scams way more effective. Phishing scams are like, they're all fueled by AI. I mean, if you've noticed it, like you're actually getting personalized text messages now that feel like, oh, this actually sounds like somebody's on the other end. The emails aren't these like really gobbledygook, not even English, emails anymore. They're actually believable, where you kind of go, oh, you almost could fall for it easier than you could before. And I actually feel like that's where I'm seeing cybersecurity growing more complex. It's more exploitative of our vulnerabilities because AI's gotten better at helping people fake being a human. And so they kind of are going in. So some of the really advanced things that I thought we were going to see in 2025, they're there. But that's actually not when I talk to my cybersecurity friends, that's not the stuff that they're freaking out about. It's people doing dumb things with AI, using AI tools that are not authorized, that are literally data harvesting scams. That's a huge thing now. So be careful with an AI tool that you go sign up for free that offers you some sort of like really convenient service. There's a ton of these AI data harvesting scams. Again, deep fakes, less of the deep fake stuff, unless you want to say they're deep faking like official looking phishing scams type of a thing. So yeah, cybersecurity is definitely a thing. I've got some friends in government and stuff like that. I mean, that's a different story. You want to talk some of these big companies that are being just bombarded by cyber attacks. I mean, yeah, they're seeing stuff, but even they will say it's actually these dumb things just being basically having the volume turned up. They're more sophisticated than they were before. It's not like this new generation of cybersecurity. It's not this new generation of cyber attacks coming out of nowhere. It's the old things just upgraded significantly. And that's why I say not in a good job, good job scammers. I don't mean it in that way, but in a sense, they're doing with AI what I wish more people were doing, which is really kind of interesting. Okay, so unrelated question, Dylan. To get into cybersecurity, there's a couple factors. First of all, one, I will just say this: cybersecurity isn't as monogamous. It's not as much of a monolith. Not monogamous. It's not as much of a monolith as a lot of people think. So when you say get into cybersecurity, it actually depends on what you mean by that. I have some friends who are in cybersecurity, and their job is actually just to do like biohacks. They literally are cognitive scientists that just specialize in like, how do you fool people? And they literally just do that. Then you have the super technical folks like the pen testers and other things like that, where they're actually, trying to execute some of these things, like major hacks. So the best way to get into cybersecurity, honestly, one of the best things you can do is if you go on LinkedIn, try and find people who are in cybersecurity and reach out and just ask and learn from them. Ask like, hey, how did you get into it? I know a lot of people who didn't go get their master's or, undergrad in cybersecurity. They just were kind of technical and had an interest and took a few, cybersecurity boot camps and then got plugged in with some folks in the cybersecurity industry. And then, it's a very good place to be. I'll tell you that. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But honestly, as much as you would think a highly technical job like that, like there'd be some technical way to get in, actually the best way to get in is to connect with people who are in the space. So, Dylan, I would highly recommend, if you don't have a LinkedIn, get a LinkedIn, look up some of these cybersecurity folks and, just get a Calendly and be like, hey, can we grab a virtual coffee and talk? I'd just love to hear what it is. Because cybersecurity is an extremely diverse field. And it is not at all as simplistic as, some people think. I think a lot of people have like the Guy Fawkes, anonymous hacker persona in their head. And I have one friend, he's in kind of the biohacking. He's just your average dude. He gets paid to go to companies and try and sneak in as the pizza guy. Like that's his job, is just to go to companies and he tries to get in with pizza or cake or something to see if he can make it into their mainframes by doing that. Or he'll go drop jump drives around the parking lot and see how many people pick him up and whoop, or he'll go try and smooth talk the security guard at the front desk. And it's a wild, and he's like, he's not the one individual I think of. This individual is not even really that techie. He doesn't know a whole lot about tech or anything. His job is just to basically be like a MI6 agent. He's like the goofy James Bond, if you will. It's like he's trying to get in and see if he can get into their main servers. And that's it. So he goes in, smooth talks the front desk and sees if he can piggyback his way through the lines and break into some of the major companies around the world. So there's that. And then there is the Guy Fawkes who's, sitting with 8 screens around him and trying to see if they can, just blunt force trauma their way into the mainframes with, AI tools. So anyway, that's what's going on in the cybersecurity thing and kind of where I landed on it. It's not quite where you go. All right. Well, there you go, Dylan. I mean, if you're a professional gamer right now, you've got, the language and the lingo. You probably actually know some people who are in the space that you can kind of talk to, that you can probably, navigate your way into it. And you would have a very easy time switching over. And actually, in the professional gaming space, yeah, you could probably find some interesting ways into it there. So anyway, definitely something to explore. Message me on LinkedIn if you want. I'll help you connect with some folks. Okay. This next one, I'm actually disappointed did not make the progress that I was hoping. So in 2025, I said public awareness of data monetization will skyrocket. I really was hoping that in 2025, more people would wake up to how much money companies are making off of your data. And, they're literally harvesting data from people. And that's why I say there's tons of these AI scams out there that they offer you these free AI tools. I won't mention the company, but there's one, it's like, hey, it's a free AI tool that'll give you feedback on your life. You just keep it running in the background. And I did a whole PSA on this. I'm like, do not download this tool because it's literally harvesting everything you do. It's harvesting what apps you use, what you type, where you focus your time, like all this stuff. And then it's fueling it back so that they can monetize it and sell it. And I really thought in 2025, more people would kind of go, whoa, like, holy crap, these companies are totally scamming us, all of this stuff. And they're doing it by just offering us a convenient little, sign up for this thing, give us access to your LinkedIn, and we'll give you this infographic that tells you your LinkedIn personality. And I really thought more people would get wise to the fact that, this is a scam. It's not really even happening. And the most profound example of this that I just shake my head and I'm like, oh, come on, is the rise of wearables, and I don't anticipate, and you see the public response to some of this stuff, but like I look at what Zuckerberg's doing with the Ray-Ban glasses, and I'm like, are you kidding? People are going to pay money to literally basically live stream all their data of life to Zuckerberg and friends? Are you serious? All for what? So you can get turn-by-turn directions in your face that you're paying for? Like, no way. And yet people are like, oh, they're so cool. It's going to be great. I can get real-time performance support as I go. I can see my text messages on my face. And I'm like, you do realize that that's just data harvesting, right? Like they just want to be able to see everything you're seeing, hear everything you're saying, record all this so that they can train their models on context and all. Like, hello, this is, but people aren't quite aware of this. So yeah, we did not make the progress on this that I was hoping that we would in 2025. And I thought we were going to see more services spring up in 2025 where you could get paid to share your data, and people would at least get paid for giving away their data. People seem just determined to be like, go ahead, have my data, I don't care. And it's a bit wild. It's a bit wild. So we did not make any of the progress I was hoping we would make in 2025 on this one. We're still way, way, way behind on public awareness of data monetization. And what's funny is now, this one just drives me nuts because there's just new scams out that people think are actually protecting them. Like the VPN scams, watch out, folks. Like the number of VPNs out there that are promising to protect you and your data from scammers. And it's like, it is a scam. Do you not realize this? They want you using their VPN so that all of your data filters through their VPN that they can harvest and sell. And you're paying them to do it. Also, what? You get an IP address from another country that can easily be traced back to you? Like, come on. You're paying money to have your data stolen from you. Just so you know, like, it is the strangest thing I have ever seen. And the lack of awareness around it is super tragic. Yeah, you're right, Dylan. A lot of people they don't understand what they're doing. And it just drives me bonkers because people are literally paying money. It's like, here, steal my data. Okay, the last one, and then I got to wrap because I got to jump to another meeting. I said at the beginning of 2025, the search for purpose is going to take center stage, and their lack of purpose, their inability to they just feel like they're losing something. Honestly, this one has taken center stage, and in a really, really tragic way. The number of people I talk to who just feel lost and hopeless this year is really, really sad. It is really, really, really sad how many people just feel like, what are we doing? I saw a question earlier, like, are we even going to make it to 2027? I know young people who are dropping out of their degree programs because they're just like, who cares anyway? Like, everything I do, nothing matters. People losing their jobs and then spending an entire year trying to find a new one, just feeling like, what am I doing? This one really has been heartbreaking in 2025. This one's been worse than I thought in 2025, and I don't really see it coming to a close in 2025. I don't see on the horizon, hooray, though, there's a bright spot up ahead. I think it's going to get worse before this one gets better. And so, I guess I'll just close on this. I said it in my post in 2025. I'll say it here. For me, my faith in Christ, being a Christian, to me is it is the thing that gives me resilience in this. And again, it's not me saying, so everybody, you have to follow the same path I do. I mean, it's an extremely fulfilling path. So of course I would want that for everybody. But yeah, people are realizing the things that define them, they're vapor, and they're vanishing before their very eyes. People's jobs, this is my life, and then it's gone. This is who I am, and then it's gone because AI replaced it. Like, it's happening everywhere, and it's leaving a lot of people just kind of looking around going, what am I even doing? So like I said, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I would say there's definitely a path to close this gap. But it seems like a lot of people just don't even know where to look. So anyway, that's where I am. If you want to, and this isn't, you don't even have to be a Christian to enjoy this. Read the book of Ecclesiastes if you're struggling for purpose. And just read it, and read one of the arguably the wealthiest king in all of human history, his thoughts on purpose. And you might feel right at home when you read it and kind of go, oh, okay, well, at least you're not alone. And I guess that would be the one encouragement. If you're feeling like you're just lost, you're not alone. I see it a lot. So anyway, that is the rundown on kind of what I thought of 2025, where we landed, how it shook out. I've got my 2026 predictions getting ready for 2026. So I'll be doing that when I come back after the break. I'm off for a couple of weeks, so you won't see me here for a while, but I hope you have an incredible Christmas, New Year's, whatever holiday you're celebrating. And I hope you get a chance to take a break and just kind of step back from things, because it's been a year. It has been a year, to say the least. And it's early preview for 2026. Yeah, it's not going to get easier in 2026, I don't think. So anyway, with that, I hope you have a great weekend and a great holiday season, and we'll see you on the other side.